My name is Annie Clausen. I'm 37 years old and I was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer at 34 years old. I was 14 weeks pregnant when I got diagnosed with my second little girl. My OBGYN, Dr. Sicking, found a mass on my ovary, and I had surgery on November 9th, and she told me after my surgery that it was cancer. So we initially thought that it was ovarian cancer. Once the pathology came back, they told me that it did not originate in my ovary and that it originated in my gut somewhere. So 9 days after my first surgery, I had a colonoscopy and they found a huge tumor in my colon. So then the next morning, I had my second surgery while pregnant to remove 10 inches of my colon. And that is when we realized that I had stage 4 colon cancer and that it was not ovarian cancer. From there, we had a lot of decisions to make, especially because I was pregnant. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to keep the baby or not. So we had to figure out if I could do treatment and keep the baby. It was important to me to really fight for her and make sure that I did everything I could to keep the baby. So thankfully, with the help of some amazing doctors, I realized that I could keep my little baby and go through treatment at the same time. So shortly after I had my second surgery, I started chemo. And I had 9 rounds of chemo while I was pregnant. They monitored the baby super closely. I had doctor's appointments every other week to check on her and make sure she was gaining weight and she was doing okay. At 35 weeks, I gave birth. Makes me emotional. To a healthy little baby girl named Codi Grace. We gave her the middle name Grace because we just felt like she was here by the grace of God. And she's our little miracle baby. She's spunky and fierce and full of life. So then after I finished, after I gave birth, I finished 3 more rounds of chemo, and then I had a PET scan and realized that it had spread a little bit more, and that it was in my liver as well. So I had a 3rd surgery, and that was to remove, it was also in my other ovary. So I had my second ovary removed. I had 30% of my liver removed, and I had my gallbladder removed. Then after that, I got a clean bill of health for a little while. I went into remission. I still continued on chemo just to be super aggressive and make sure that we were gonna, get everything if there was anything left. So I had 2 clear scans, and then it came back again. And this time it came back kind of in my pelvic area. So I did some radiation, and then I did a trial pill. It was like a targeted cell therapy treatment for a little while. I did a little bit more radiation, but then this past August it came back in my liver. So I have been doing chemo on and off since August. I also tried a little bit of immunotherapy, which didn't work for me, but it was a great break. I got a little 2-month break from chemo during Christmas, during the holidays, so that was really nice. But I'm back on chemo right now, and next week I'll have my 30th round of chemo, which sounds crazy. And I have a crappy week, and then I have a good week. So this week is my good week. Last week was my crappy week. But it's manageable, and with the help of family and friends and a village, we're getting through it all. So, yeah. I couldn't have been happier with St. John's and the care that they provided for me. I had a 10-day span where everything happened so quickly. I met Dr. Bilchik that evening in the emergency room. I was surrounded by my sister-in-laws and my husband, bawling my eyes out, and he immediately made me feel super comfortable. He knew that he had 2 lives to take care of. It wasn't just myself that he was taking care of, but it was my unborn baby. And so it's so much heavier when it's not just yourself. So he just made me feel super comfortable that everything was going to be fine, that the baby was going to be fine. The next day was a super long surgery. I don't think I got out of the OR until like 11 something at night. So he had been operating all day. I was his last patient, and I don't remember waking up, but I just remember him coming in every day that week and checking on me. I didn't know all the risks associated with the surgery going into it. I think I kind of slowly started to realize these things as I was coming out of it. They weren't sure if they could put my colon back together, which I would have had to have a colostomy bag. And Dr. Bilchik was amazing. He put it back together. He saved me an extra surgery and a lot of agony with having a colostomy bag. And then my third surgery that I had with him, I knew that I wanted to go back to him. I knew that I felt comfortable with him, and I knew that I felt comfortable with St. John's. And he just was great. It was a huge surgery. He removed 30% of my liver, my gallbladder, he fixed a hernia, and then my ovary was removed also. So it was a huge surgery. Everything went so smoothly. My scars look great. And I just felt like I had got great care at St. John's. I distinctly remember it was Friday. I'd had my surgery on Tuesday, and I was staying at St. John's Hospital for the week recovering from my second surgery. I had so many doctors in and out of my room, so many conversations were going on behind the scenes. They actually had a meeting of the minds, I think they call it, here at St. John's Hospital on Friday morning to specifically discuss my case, because there were so many questions about how we were going to proceed with me being pregnant and having stage 4 colon cancer and needing a lot of treatment. And I specifically remember getting a phone call, and she said, "You can keep your baby." And I just burst into tears because the priority had always been keeping myself alive, but I wanted to keep my baby so badly. And I didn't know until that phone call that I was going to be able to keep her and that I was going to be able to do treatment with her. And, even though I knew that, it wasn't really actually until at 35 weeks, I got induced, because we had to time it with my chemo. I had to do a chemo, I had to recover for a certain amount of days from the chemo, then I had to give birth, then I had to have a certain amount of days after I gave birth before I could do my chemo again. So at 35 weeks I was induced. It got a little, I don't want to say dicey, but she wasn't responding well to being induced. I was at St. John's. Dr. Sicking was my OBGYN, and she was phenomenal. I think any other place and any other doctor, I probably would have had to have a C-section, which would have just created more complications for myself and having to do chemo after. The medical staff stuck with me, and I ended up getting a blood transfusion an hour before I gave birth, and miraculously she started doing better, and my body responded, and I was fully dilated and ready to give birth. She arrived, and she did have to stay in the NICU for 5 days. And this was actually when COVID was going on. So we left the following morning. She stayed in the hospital, and I was the only one that was able to come see her for 5 days. So my husband didn't even get to hold her until she came home 5 days later. But the staff here took really good care of her, and I got to see her every day. And she came home so tiny, but she was just such a little fighter from the moment she was born. And she's thriving and almost 2, and it's just a little miracle that she's here. I think the biggest thing for me it was my mindset. I just had to block out all the negativity and all the what ifs and all the questions, and I didn't go down the rabbit hole. I think it's so easy to just go down that rabbit hole and go to that dark place. And I stayed positive, and I stayed confident in what we were doing, and I stayed confident in our game plan, and I really just took it one day at a time. I didn't get too ahead of myself. I didn't look past the next chemo. I didn't look past the next treatment. I didn't look past the next PET scan. I think you have to stay positive, and you have to keep your head in a good place, and then I think the rest follows. So for me, it was really my mind frame and having confidence in my doctors and my team. It takes a village, and you have to allow all the support from everybody to help you, because especially with me, I had a toddler at the time, and I had a newborn baby. COVID was going on, and I was going through chemo and surgeries. I mean, our world couldn't have been more flipped upside down, but I think staying positive is really the biggest thing. And don't Google anything. I mean, there's so much negativity and so much stuff out on the internet that can really just send you spiraling. I only listened to my doctors, and I only listened to the people that I trusted, that I knew were in my corner and had confidence in what we were doing. Thank you. I mean, there really aren't any other words than just thank you. He, played such a huge role in getting me to where I am today and making me feel comfortable and taking care of myself and taking care of my unborn child. I remember when I went to go see him for my follow-up, he told me, "I'll never forget your case," because he knew that he had another person to look out for during that surgery. So he told me that I was on my game that day. I was laser focused, and so when I went in for my third surgery and I wasn't pregnant, I said, "You better be laser focused today, just like you were then." No, but really just, thank you is not enough to him and all the staff at St. John's. It would have never crossed my mind that at 34 years old I would have stage 4 colorectal cancer. Never in a million years. And I just think it's so important to spread awareness to people that this is happening in our generation. It is happening younger. The colonoscopy requirement just got moved to age 45, but that wouldn't help somebody like me, who was 34. So I just think we need to spread awareness that it is happening to a ton of people in their 30s. And people need to be aware of that, and they need to go to the doctor, and they need to look for symptoms. They need to be aware of those things and go get checked if something seems off. People just need to be aware that colorectal cancer is not a disease for older people anymore. It is happening younger and younger these days. And if it can happen to somebody like me, it can happen to anybody. I did every genetic test that was possible. My tumors were sent off to the lab to get analyzed, and we still don't know why. I'm determined, before I die, to have an answer to that, to have an answer to why it's happening in younger people. I think it had to have been something hereditary for me. My grandfather, my grandmother, my mom, and my dad all had cancer. So it's important to know your lineage and your history, your family history. It's important to know if you have colon cancer in your family. I wasn't fully aware that my grandfather died of colon cancer. He died before I was born, so it wasn't something that was talked about all the time. So it's very important to know your family history. If you have a family history of colorectal cancer, get checked early. It's never too early. A colonoscopy is not that bad, I promise. Compared to what I'm going through right now, I would have given anything to just had a colonoscopy when I was young enough to catch it early. And if you catch it early, it's really an easy disease to come out on top of.
I'll never forget the day I was asked to see Annie. I was told by the operating room nurses, who were actually familiar with her because they'd worked with her before, and they said that someone that they knew was diagnosed with colon cancer and also was pregnant, 4 months pregnant, and in her early 30s. Just the combination of hearing a young person being diagnosed with colon cancer who's 4 months pregnant is a day that I will never forget, because it then occurred to me that we have 2 lives to save. And we got together with our colleagues, as we often do with these types of patients who have difficult decisions to make. How do we safely remove the colon cancer and make sure that the baby's healthy? Annie made it so easy for us, because she's just such a delightful person, had such insight into her life, into what she wanted to do, and just made us feel comfortable as her treating physicians that we just need to get her better and move forward. And I remember we did the surgery. She recovered well from the surgery, and she went on to have a beautiful baby. She's been treated with chemotherapy, and Annie's truly remarkable, because she's living life now with 2 kids. I just have to digress and say that one of the I still have the Christmas card in my pocket that Annie sent, over the holidays, because when you get a card like this from one of your patients with two beautiful babies, you hold it, close to your heart. So we're seeing this rapid increase in people under age 40 being diagnosed with colon cancer. Colon cancer used to be an old person's disease. Most of colon cancer still occurs in people over age 65, but there's this rapid increase, more so than just about any other cancer, in people under age 40. And Annie had, I believe, a grandfather that was diagnosed with colon cancer, but no one thinks of looking for colon cancer in someone in their early 30s. She really was the exception more than the rule. I honestly could not think of anything more challenging for both the patient, her family, and the treating physicians. But treating a young person with colon cancer who happens to be 4 months pregnant with a healthy baby is one of the most challenging situations for a physician to be in, and even tougher for Annie to be in, because Annie didn't hesitate. She wanted to have a healthy baby, and she did not want cancer to get in the way of having that healthy baby. So the challenge for both Annie and us was, how do we accomplish both and do it successfully?